The sun rose slowly over the quiet river, casting a soft golden light across the open fields. Elina walked toward the water, her footsteps steady on the uneven dirt road. The morning air was cool and filled with the scent of damp grass and old stone. She carried a heavy basket of laundry on her hip, her muscles already familiar with the weight. The village was still waking up, and the only sound was the gentle flow of the river against the bank. For years, Elina had spent her days by this water. She knelt on the smooth rocks, dipping heavy fabrics into the current. She washed white shirts, blue uniforms, and thick woolen blankets. Her hands moved with a rhythm born of long practice, scrubbing and rinsing until the water ran clear. The work was hard, and the cold water often made her fingers feel numb and stiff. Her back ached by noon, and the skin on her palms was rough from the soap and the friction of the cloth. Every evening, Elina returned to her small rented house with a handful of coins. She lived a simple life, never spending on luxury or distractions. She prepared modest meals and kept her home tidy. Yet, at the end of every month, her pockets were empty. The money seemed to slip away like water through her fingers. She felt a deep, quiet confusion. It was as if she were walking on a path that never led anywhere, no matter how fast she moved. The house she lived in was old, with thick walls painted a plain, faded white. One afternoon, while she was cleaning a quiet corner of the main room, a shaft of sunlight hit the wall at a certain angle. She noticed a series of thin, vertical lines scratched into the plaster. They were small and delicate, hidden in the shadows near the floor. When she asked the landlord about them, he spoke of a man who had lived there long ago. The man had used the wall to mark every day he chose to remain patient and hopeful despite his struggles. That evening, Elina sat on her wooden chair and looked at the empty space on the wall. She realized that she had been working for everyone else, but she had not been truly looking at herself. She decided to start a new practice. She would not focus on the money she lacked. Instead, she would focus on her own choices. Every night, if she made a decision that showed respect for her time and her effort, she would draw a small line. If she let the day slip away without intention, the wall would remain blank. The first few weeks were difficult. Elina looked at the wall and realized how often she lacked the courage to mark it. She saw how many days she gave away her labor for less than it was worth. She noticed how she wasted small resources out of habit or allowed herself to be distracted by things that did not matter. The blank spaces on the wall were silent witnesses to her lack of focus. It was a painful realization, but it was also the beginning of a new clarity. Slowly, Elina began to change the way she moved through her day. When a neighbor asked for extra work without offering fair payment, she spoke up with a calm and gentle firmness. She started to measure her soap carefully, realizing that a little less could do the same work if she was more patient. She handled the clothes with more grace, folding them with a precision that showed she valued her own craft. Each small act of mindfulness allowed her to return home and draw a line on the wall with a sense of quiet pride. As the lines grew in number, a sense of peace began to fill the small house. Elina no longer felt like a victim of her circumstances. She was becoming the guardian of her own life. She tracked every coin and every hour. She discovered that by respecting the small things, the big things began to take care of themselves. Her clients noticed the change in her work. They saw the care she put into every garment and the calm confidence in her eyes. They began to trust her more, and her work became more consistent. The seasons changed, and the fields turned from green to gold. The wall was now covered in hundreds of small purposeful marks. Each one represented a moment where Elina had chosen herself over her old habits. One morning, she sat down and looked at her savings. For the first time, there was a surplus. It was not a fortune, but it was enough. She walked to the nearby town and purchased a second-hand washing machine. It was a simple machine, but to Elina, it was a monument to her persistence. The heavy physical burden of the river work began to lift. With the machine, she could wash more efficiently, giving her body time to rest and her mind time to dream. The ache in her shoulders faded, and her hands began to heal. Her life did not become perfect overnight, but it became hers. She realized that the lines on the wall were more valuable than the machine itself. They were the evidence that she had rebuilt her own spirit, one day at a time. Elina stood by her window and watched the sunset over the distant hills. She knew now that change does not always come from a sudden miracle. Often, it comes from the quiet, honest work of looking at one's own reflection. She had learned to value the small moments and the power of consistent action. As she picked up a piece of charcoal to mark another day of progress, she felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey she had taken. She was no longer just a woman washing clothes. She was a woman who had found her way home to herself.